afternoon all for the post-lunch session on third day, Atal Academy sponsored FDP on emotional intelligence organized by Marathwada Mitra Mandal College of Pharmacy, Pune. The resource person for this third session is Honorable Mayur Pangarekar sir, a corporate trainer, business life coach and consultant. Sir completed his graduation from Government College of Engineering, Aurangabad, MS in Industrial Engineering from University of South Florida, USA, and MBA in Supply Chain Management from Duquesne University, Petersburg, USA in 2008. Sir started his career with a mission as a catalyst to bring about permanent and positive transformation in people's lives through a training. The video courses and one-to-one coaching, he conducted customized specific need based training programs like stress resolution, smart goal settings, personal productivity, improvement, etc. He is also involved in one-to-one coaching on career advancement, career management, self-management, then work for harmony for working professionals, entrepreneurs, etc. and also consulting for manufacturing plant setup, process establishment, where he trained more than 3,000 working professionals. On professional front, sir, he is certified NLP coach and practitioner trained by Dr. Vivek Bindraj EAE Entrepreneurship, a certified life coach. Then sir is having more than 16 years of global industry experience in manufacturing industry, in management, with a strong background in medical devices, lighting, machine mounts, solar inverters, and variety of industries, valve industries. Then from USA, he is having USA patent holder for lamp and method for supporting a light source. So with this small introduction, I will invite to Honorable Mayur Pangarekar sir to start the session. Thank you, sir.
Okay, very much for the introduction. So can you hear me properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll start in first or second minute, and then if we have any issues with the audio, then I'll just turn off my video and then continue from that.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to share my PowerPoint with all of you. Okay, so can you see the PowerPoint? Is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are seeing it. It is visible, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, so yeah, let me see if my audio. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm very excited to be here today talking with all of you about an essential aspect in emotional intelligence. You all have been listening to watching various statistics from Monday, and today we are going to focus on a life skill that matters, which is self-awareness. So quickly I'm going to tell you the agenda for today, and we are going to look at a few things today. What is the purpose of self-awareness? Then I'm going to tell you two stories about this. Then we are specifically going to look at what exactly do we need awareness in? What are those different areas of our life, our profession, we need awareness in order to grow, in order to develop. So this is awareness of our strengths, awareness of our weaknesses, awareness of our values, beliefs, awareness of our dreams. After that, I'm going to share with you a 5-level emotional intelligence model So you can all start to become aware more and more about how exactly you respond in a particular situation. Then I'm going to tell you basic things about what are primary emotions and what are secondary emotions. And then we are going to go into 9 different ways to gaining more self-awareness. And we will also have a session on question answers at the end of the session. So anytime if my audio is not clear, just quickly send a message on the chat, so I will immediately turn off my video. So I welcome all of you to this session. So what is exactly self-awareness? So one of the great privileges of human beings for all of us is that we can all be self-conscious. We can all be self-aware. And you now know that you are a human being. Now it sounds like very easy thing to do. But in reality, it is very important that we are aware that we know that we are human beings. So for example, take an example of elephant. An elephant does not even know that it is an elephant. You may be calling it an Asian elephant or an African elephant, but the elephant does not know that it is an elephant. Leave aside Asian or African. But in contrast, for all human beings, we not only have the ability to become self-aware, but we also have the ability to get in touch with our feelings. And I'll tell you a quick story. Once there was a man who asked this Greek philosopher, Socrates, that, Socrates, you have said this and you believe that contentment is one of the greatest virtues that you can have in your life. Now, contentment is satisfaction, being satisfied with something. So this man asked Socrates, if you were to reborn again, Socrates, which would you prefer? Would you prefer to be a contented horse, a satisfied horse, or would you prefer to be an uncontented man? So to this question, Socrates answered, I would always prefer to be an uncontented man. Then the person asked, why? Why would you be an uncontented man? So Socrates answered to this person, because then I will at least have the awareness that I am an uncontented man. As a contented horse, I wouldn't even know that I am a contented horse. When I know that I am an uncontented man, then I can go on and make changes, make improvements in my life, to my life, and then start my journey towards satisfaction or contentment. So friends, this ability to just be aware is a unique gift that nature, God, has given all of us. And we must all know how to use that. So let's look at what exactly is the purpose of self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is basically what? It is knowing yourself, knowing oneself. We call it Atmagyan. So anytime you want to grow in your profession, you want to grow in your personal life, the very first thing, the very fundamental thing is always self-awareness. Without knowing your goals, your strengths, your weaknesses, your emotions, your thoughts, we cannot really begin our journey to grow in our life personally as well as professionally. So the purpose, the very purpose of becoming emotionally self-aware is that it allows us to understand how our emotions, how our thoughts, how our different body sensations are affecting ourselves, are affecting other people around us, and also affecting the environment. So this is the fundamental thing. Now the next thing is that each day, each hour, each minute, and each moment is our opportunity to become more and more self-aware. So the more we practice it, the more we are going to become at it. And bigger, greater, it is going to have the impact on our professional life as well as personal life. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. Many years ago, Vyasa, he wrote this, biggest epic of India, which is Mahabharata. Now, Mahabharata is a voluminous text, and if you take two Greek epics, which is Odyssey and Iliad, if you put together both of those, Odyssey and Iliad, Mahabharata is even larger than both of these put together, combined. So when Vyasa wrote Mahabharata, he asked his rishis, can you please read my, epic? Can you please review this and give me feedback? And feedback is not only in 20th and 21st century. We also had feedback in BC. So the rishis said, yes, we will be glad to do that. So the rishis reviewed the entire Mahabharata and said, this is really great. This is beautiful, superb work you did, Vyasa. But let me ask you one question. Who is your TG? That means who is your target group? Who are those people who you want to read this Mahabharata? Then Vyasa said, this is for all human beings. All human beings can benefit from this epic, this story. And the rishis then said, lot of people, almost nobody is going to read this much, this big of a text. Can you create an executive summary of 6 pages of this Mahabharata? Then Vyasa said, yes, I can do it. So he condensed it, entire Mahabharata, as an executive summary in 6 pages. And he gave it to rishis, and rishis said, we read it, it's beautiful. It is actually the essence of Mahabharata, and you have condensed it so beautifully. But you know what? It's still few pages. Can you still reduce it to just 1 page? And Vyasa said, okay, let me do that. So he condensed that executive summary into 1 page. And after looking at the 1 page, the rishis, they were literally ecstatic. They said, Vyasa, what you have done in 1 page, it is not the essence of Mahabharata, it is the quintessence of Mahabharata. It is the extract of essence. It is the refined essence of Mahabharata. It is superb. Then said, what? Can you still reduce that to just 1 shloka? Can you do it in 1 shloka? Vyasa said, yes, I will do it. So the Vyasa went back and he reduced it just to 1 shloka. And all the rishis, they said, this is such a beautiful thing. This is so deep. This is so meditative. I went into a meditative trance while reading this shloka. But most of the human beings are not going to have the psycho-spiritual maturity to know this and to engage with this. So Vyasa, can you reduce it to just 1 word? Just 1 word. Can you reduce the entire Mahabharata in simply 1 word? Vyasa said, yes, I can do that. And then Vyasa went back and worked and worked and worked. And he came back with 1 word. So that just 1 word, do you know what that 1 word was? That 1 word was paropakar. So that 1 word is paropakar. So it means doing good to others, contributing to this society, contributing to this world. Because all of us, all of human beings, we come here in this life, in this world with nothing. We go out, we go away from this life with nothing. So in the middle, what is this fuss about? So doing good to others. Now, your pursuit of helping others, all the benefits you are going to get to you, for you, are based on your goals, your desires to help others, to contribute in the society. So what happens here is that in order to help others, in order to contribute to the society, very first thing, you have to become self-aware. You have to know your strengths. You have to know what you are really great at. You also have to know your weaknesses. You also have to know other people around you. You also have to know needs, challenges, problems of other people. Then and then only you can go on and contribute to this society. So the concept of emotional intelligence and the entire literature on emotional intelligence in this world is anchored to this one word called paropkara. It is anchored, it is connected with the philosophy and principle of paropkar. So it is at the foundation. It is at the foundation of our life. So let's quickly look at how self-awareness can help us. As we said, self-awareness is a central theme in emotional intelligence. Let's say we are not aware of our feelings. We don't understand what we are feeling. We don't understand the causes of our feelings. Then leading a happy, meaningful, interesting product life is going to become very, very difficult, if not impossible. So there may be outward signs of success, such as prestige, money, success. You are successful in your career, but to be truly happy, you have to know what is that thing that makes you feel good. You also have to know what are those things that make you feel bad. Just having the awareness of these things can help you take your next steps, can help you to take your next actions. So just few examples of self-awareness. What is self-awareness? Is that, let's say I'm going to be attending the emotional intelligence training program starting tomorrow. So you may feel that I'm really excited to feel. I'm very excited to start attending this emotional intelligence program. The second example can be, let's say you smell something really, really nice. You smell coming out from somebody's kitchen, and you say, "Oh, I experience this craving that I want to eat idli sambar." Then you may say, yesterday that person said something to me. He did not treat me nicely. So you can experience, I'm experiencing anger arising from me. So understanding this and giving names to these different feelings is part of awareness. Now let's see, I'm going to show you in this picture. What do you see in this picture? I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm driving a car on the blue line on the same direction you are driving a car. So we are going in a parallel direction this way. Up till this point, we are going same. Now from this point, I decide to continue straight. And you have an awareness. I don't have an awareness that I have a weakness and I need to make a change. But you have an awareness that you want to make a change. So at that time, you become aware and you make a slight change. It is only tiny 1% change in your attitude, in your thinking, in the way you make decisions. It's a 1% change. So you start going in a slightly different direction. So we are only 1 degree apart. But slowly and slowly, over time, what happens is that I'm continuing on the same path because I did not make a change, and you made a tiny small shift in your attitude, in your behavior, and see where exactly you have reached. So the first step always is awareness. You need to be aware of your strengths, weaknesses. Where do I need to make changes? You have to be aware of that. So that is the start of improvements. So the next important thing we are going to look at is that what are those different things in our life and profession that we need to be aware of. So we need to be aware of our motives, your vision for your life, for your organization, for your college, for your institute. Are you aware of your vision? Are you aware of your character? What are your goals? What are your 3-year goals, 1-year goals, 6-month goals, 1-month goals? Do you have clarity in those goals? So we are going to look at this picture and we are going to talk about strengths. So self-awareness means knowing your strengths. What are my strengths? What I am really, really great at doing. So in this picture, all of you are seeing a house with 4 rooms. So you are standing here where it says you, and other people are standing on this side. So from here, whatever you see in room number 1 is something you know you are aware of. That are your strengths. You know your strengths. That is in room number 1. The second thing, the example of this is you may know, I'm really good at presentation. I'm really good at teaching. I'm really great at collaboration, motivating, influencing. Those are my strengths. So that is room number 1. Now room number 2 is something that you cannot see from here. It is blocked. But room number 2 is something that other people can see through this window. So this is why it is very crucial. This is why it is very crucial to ask feedback to other people about your strengths and your weaknesses. Because there are some things that you're not going to know. An example of this may be your colleague or boss or manager, supervisor may say, the way you analyze that problem is phenomenal. I've never seen anybody like this before. The way you give examples when you're teaching students is superb. We don't have anybody like this in our city. So something that you are not aware of, but other people, if they are sharp in their observation, they are going to tell you this. So some people will give you feedback on their own, but not all people. That's why it is crucial to ask for feedback from other people. So that is room number 2. Now room number 3. In room number 3 is something that you cannot see because it's blocked. And room number 3 is something that other people also cannot see. So it is blocked. So this is called your potential strength. This is for your potential strength. What are your potential strengths? So the potential strengths is something that has not come to the surface yet. You do not have those strengths in your consciousness. You are not aware of those. Okay, you have the skill, you have the talent, but it has just not manifested yet in the outside world, in reality. So that is the potential. So I will tell you a story. Imagine you all individually, you are going to go into a jungle and you have a lot of work to do. So you go to the jungle at 9 a.m. in the morning and you do work throughout your day. From 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. you are continuously working. And at 6 p.m. you're totally exhausted. You're completely tired. You say to yourself, I don't have any energy left in me. I am so tired that I need to take some rest. So in that case, what you do is you just find a tree and you say, I'm going to lay down here for some time and then I will go home. So as soon as you lay down, in one moment, you are completely asleep. You're like totally asleep because you were so tired, right? And just 10 seconds after that, you hear a loud roar of a tiger. A loud roar of a tiger. So you immediately get up, you immediately look around your left, right, back, and on your backside, you see a tiger who is 30 feet away from you and who is approaching you. So in that moment, you don't have any tools, you don't have any guns, you don't have any equipments. You're on your own. You're just on your own. So in that moment, what do? You go into fight or flight mode. And because you don't have any tools, fighting is out of question. You immediately start running. And you run so fast, for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. You run so fast until you don't hear the voice of that tiger. You reach your place, your home safely, and you feel secure. So this is the story. What happens here is that whatever potential we have, it has to come to surface. To really understand our real potential, our hidden strengths, you have to take action. If you think that you may be interested in a different field, go and read something, explore in that field, because unless you do it, you are not going to know your potential strength, your hidden skills that you have. And number 4 are your something here that is known to yourself, because you can see it from here, but it is not known to others. So these may be, your fears. These may be some of the skills that you are aware of, but because of some beliefs, because of some fears, you have just not shared your skill with this world. So something to be aware of. Something, is there a fear that is holding you back? Is there something that you can change to bring that talent to the surface? So these are the examples of 4 different strengths we need to be aware of. Now, in weakness, as with strengths, we also need to be aware of our weak points, our weakness. Because weakness is something that is going to hold you back, that is going to stop you from achieving your goals and capitalizing on your strengths. So, for example, let's say, imagine you have very strong pectoral muscles. Your pectoral muscles are your muscles at the top of your chest, joining your upper arm and shoulder. So you have very strong muscles, and let's say these are your wings and you are ready to fly. You can reach to the sky. But imagine that your feet are on the floor and somebody is pulling them down. Somebody is holding them onto the floor. So that thing, that something that is holding, that is your weakness. Because of that, you can't fly. So, for example, if somebody says, at my work, I really do a great job. I do everything perfect. It is so perfect that my work will speak for itself. So that's what I do. I do my job and I don't need to be courteous to anybody. So if somebody does that, what's going to be the end result? It will not work. Even if you have a strength in your profession, but if you lack in some soft skill, if you lack in these basic life skills, it's going to hold you back. is going to hold you back from becoming successful. The next important point is your awareness of how you learn. We are living in a world, in an environment of huge complexity and continuous change. So our ability to learn new things, our ability to learn new things and quickly is of supreme importance. So how do you learn and how do you unlearn? Because unlearning is also important. I may have some old bad habits that I need to unlearn. I may be using an outdated tool or software, and there is a new tool that is already in the market which does that job, in half the time and 10 times better. So I need to unlearn as well as learn. So remember your school days or college days. How did you study? Some people like to read. Their best style is by reading. So they went into the room before exams and they shut their doors, and they kept reading and reading and reading, because that's how they absorbed the knowledge. That's how they gained the understanding. So some people learn best by reading. Some people learn best by writing the answers to the questions, writing your thoughts, writing your feelings, writing. Some people might be good in teaching others. Whatever they have learned, if they teach it to other people, group of 5, 10, 15, 20 students, they learn better. It reinforces. Some people are very good listeners and they learn best by listening and discussing. So if you have this style, your best style is listening and discussing, then you must plan at least once in a quarter to attend a training workshop where you can learn a lot by just listening to the speakers and discussing with other people. Some people can learn best by observing, by watching videos. So what is your style? How do you learn best? The benefit of this awareness is that once you know how you learn best, then you can change your actions. You can tutor yourself to learning in that particular way or method. So next we are going to talk about values. So here by values, I don't mean moral or ethical things. What I mean here is something that is very important to us in our life, something that is uncompromisingly significant in our life. What is that? What do I value? Some people value money. Some people value freedom. Some people value power and status. Some people value learning and challenges. Some people may value quality of life. So, for example, if there is somebody who says they value security, I want to feel secure, I want to feel safe. So this person joins an organization or a company or bank as for example a clerk. So his need is security. So he wants to go to the office on time, come back on time, and he just wants to get the feeling of security by having the paycheck every month. That is the most important thing for him. And his wife is packing the same lunch for him. She's packing curd rice and pickle, and he loves that every day. So when it comes to curd rice, he says, my wife is a magician. So this person loves security. MNC will come and MNCs will go, but this person, he loves security. Somebody else might value family time. They might value value quality time, quality of life. So let's say somebody is a father and he has a 7-year-old daughter. So with a 7-year-old daughter, he likes to hold her hand and go for a walk. So one day he's going walk with his 7-year-old daughter, and he's holding her hand, and they're walking, and he's enjoying that experience. And then suddenly, the daughter stops and says, she looks at the sky and says, "Papa, what are those colors? I'm looking at this, watching this for the first time." So the papa says, "Beta, that is called rainbow." So the daughter goes, "Oh, rainbow." So this person, this father, is looking at his daughter. He is reliving the entire experience of his childhood when he saw the rainbow for the first time. And he's reliving that experience through the eyes of his daughter. So he values family time. He values spending quality time with family. So he will go to the office 9 o'clock, go early, come back early 5 o'clock, because he wants to spend time with his wife and his children. So that is the value. What do you value? Are you aware of what do you value? Somebody else might not be interested in a lot of money. They will say, my salary can be 1/5 of your salary. My salary could be 1/5 of your salary. But when I enter my office room, I want everybody to stand up and I want everybody to say good morning to me. So this person is like an IPS officer. He values recognition. He values power. He values prestige. Those are his needs. So what do you value? It is important to be aware and know what do you value. So similarly, somebody might value autonomy and freedom. They will say, if I'm working for a college or an organization, I want my supervisor, boss, just to tell me what needs to be done. And after that, I want complete freedom. After that, I want complete autonomy on how I'm going to get it done from start to finish. So some people value autonomy or freedom. So part of the self-awareness is knowing what you value. So we all need to introspect. This is a difficult one to crack. So let me stop my video. And okay, so is the voice better now? Is the voice clear?
It's quite clear, sir. Earlier it was quite clear. It's quite clear.
Okay, great. Okay. So let's move on. On the next thing, we need to also have awareness of how you respond and about your body. So giving you an example, let's say there is somebody who is something really bad to me, and my natural reaction, I call it system 1 reaction, is that somebody said something bad to me, I'm immediately hurt, and I'm immediately start defending and arguing and shouting at that person. So this thing called system 1 is my natural reaction. So having the awareness of how exactly do you respond to a particular situation in your life or profession is also part of self-awareness. Because without this system 1 self-awareness, you cannot move to system 2. That is, system 2 is your thoughtful, your conscious process of properly responding. So the awareness of how you respond in different situations. My child is not doing study properly. How do I respond naturally? System 1. My wife said something to me. There are a lot of uncertainties around us right now due to this pandemic. This is all external events. These are all external events. How do we naturally respond is part of self-awareness. How do we naturally respond? That is part of self-awareness. Then the second part is about our body. Are we aware what is happening on the surface of our body as well as inside our body? We can categorize this. I have pain in my lower back. Kavita ma'am, is the voice clear?
Voice is clear, sir, but we are not able to see you. I think your video is off.
Okay, yeah. I turned it on again now.
So it is okay now.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So looking at our body, we categorize this in different things. What are the different sensations? I have a pain in my lower back. I have a throbbing pain in my shoulder. I have a shooting pain. I have a tingling sensation. I feel dizzy. I feel fatigued. I have a knot in my stomach. I have a feeling of heaviness. I am feeling very light and free. So these are all different sensations. The more and more you increase your awareness, you start becoming aware of a lot of these different feelings and sensations in your body. Next, we are going to talk about the awareness of the core things. Awareness of the core things. So some of these things we have already seen, which are awareness of your beliefs. What are your limiting beliefs? What are holding you back? What are your positive, supporting, and empowering beliefs? What are your biases? Are you judging somebody? Are you judging a situation based on your beliefs? Do you have past experiences? What are your fears? What is your biggest fear that is holding you back? What are your dreams? What are your personal aspirations? What are your feelings? This is also the part of self-awareness. So I'm going to quickly tell you a 5-level model of EQ. Are we aware of our EQ? With a quick example. Let's say it's 12 o'clock in the night, and you're sleeping. You're sound asleep. Your friend comes, knocks on your door and says, my girlfriend, she just broke up with me. I'm very upset. I'm very sad. I'm very depressed. So if I am his friend and I am at the antipathy lowest EQ level, then I will tell him, I had already told you, don't do this. Don't go out with the girl. Now you did this. You deal with it. And I shut the door and I go back to sleep. That is level 0. At this point, I have demonstrated 0 EQ. Then I go to apathy. It is slightly better than antipathy. Same incident, 12 o'clock. The way I am responding, this is what has happened. Then I say, I understand this, but it's 12 o'clock. I want to sleep. And I shut the door and I go back to sleep. Maybe we'll talk tomorrow. So lack of interest, lack of concern for other person's feelings and situation. Third thing is called sympathy. Sympathy is same incident, 12 o'clock. Now, let's say you are his friend. The way you are responding is, this, I feel bad for you. This is bad that happened. The same thing happened to me, 2 years ago. And that's all. That is sympathy. It's better than apathy. Then you go to empathy. Same incident, 12 o'clock. The way you respond is, okay, I understand. I went through the same situation 2 years ago, so I know how you feel. I really share your feelings. So you are demonstrating in empathy, you're demonstrating that you understand his feelings. You're demonstrating to that person that I also feel those feelings, and you truly are listening to that person. So that is called empathy. Better than sympathy, and from empathy you move to compassion. So in compassion, that is the highest level of EQ. In compassion, you show empathy, and in addition, you take a specific action to help that person, to comfort that person. So you demonstrate to him that you understand his feelings, and at the same time, you tell him, tell me more about it. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a drive. I'll be with you for next 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever is needed. So you show and take specific action to help that person, to comfort that person. So where are we exactly on this spectrum of EQ? Awareness of that is also important. Now, do you know who this person is? Okay, so this person is Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl was a doctor, he was a psychiatrist in Germany. He was one of the many people who were put in the camps in Nazi Germany. And he knew that he was being tortured and he was going through a lot of innumerable indignities. So in those moments, he started thinking that I know this is happening to me, and right now I feel helpless. Right now I feel like a victim because I cannot do anything. So from that moment, he started to think there has to be something that I can do myself to help me in this situation. And slowly, Viktor Frankl started to realize, to be aware of his power and his freedom to make a choice. So he started to become aware of the stimulus, which is the external environment that was torture, indignities. And then he was being an observer to this entire situation. And he realized a very fundamental thing about human beings is that between stimulus and response, there is a space. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lie our freedom and power to make a choice. And in those choices lie our happiness and peace. So slowly, Viktor Frankl started to become aware of his ability. So he also started to use his imagination and visualization. He used to teach in colleges. So he used to imagine, what can I teach my students that I am learning today through this experience? So he started imagining and visualization, and slowly, he got the complete power. So he said, between any stimulus and response, if you become aware that you have that power and freedom, then you can decide to make those choices in your life and career. And this is very fundamental principle, and even most intelligent animals don't have this. We all know that dogs are trained to do certain things, but dogs don't understand, don't know, or cannot take the responsibility to train themselves. They are not even aware of that. Human beings do that for them. But in contrast, human beings, we have this unique gift, and for our personal growth, this is very fundamental in becoming more and more aware and starting our journey in personal growth. So I'm going to share you quickly. The picture you see here is just our emotional literacy or emotional vocabulary. What is our emotional vocabulary? The primary emotions that we have are simple to understand. Somebody said something bad to me and I immediately get angry, that anger. Or I feel stressed about some upcoming exam that is next week. That is primary emotion. Secondary emotion is something that you feel about an emotion. So you may feel anger about being hurt, or you may feel embarrassed about the way you were anxious yesterday. So emotional vocabulary is something we need to develop. This is just another example of all the different emotions that we feel throughout the day. This is a mood meter. On the lower right quadrant, we have low energy, high pleasantness, satisfied, grateful, blissed, peaceful, tranquil, serene. On the left side, we have low energy, low pleasantness. This is miserable, lonely, discouraged, sad, depressed. On the top left, high energy, low pleasantness. This is panic, stressed, furious, angry, nervous, anxious. On the right top side are motivated, cheerful, ecstatic, elated, optimistic, enthusiastic. All these emotions, there is nothing wrong in feeling a particular emotion as long as you are aware of it and then you decide to make a change after that. We all feel different kinds of emotions throughout the day. We need to develop the courage to understand and express those. So we'll look at quickly a few more ways we can gain self-awareness. So the very first is a daily reflection. So at the end of the day, if you just take 5 to 10 minutes before you sleep and start becoming aware, how was my day today? What was good today? What was not good today? What are the improvements I can make for today? So just this simple exercise of spending 5 minutes before your day is over, it will just help you increase your awareness about your experiences. What was right you did, what was wrong you did, whatever you did was wrong you think, you can just correct yourself tomorrow. Without this awareness, you cannot grow in life. You cannot improve. So daily reflection. Schedule some time for yourself. Maybe 5 minutes after you wake up, 5 minutes after lunch, 5 minutes before you go back to sleep. Second thing, ask specific questions. We all are asked questions in the exam, in the interview. Voice is not okay. Let me try stopping my video.
It's clear, sir. It's clear. I think probably with her video there's a problem, but it's quite clear. With your video, it's quite clear, sir, for us.
Yeah. For some people say in the chat the voice is not. So for 5 minutes I'll shut off my video. So questions, asking questions. We have to learn to ask questions to ourselves. It's not a very easy thing to do, but it is important. It will help you a lot. What are my feelings? Why am I feeling this way? How long have I been feeling this way? When I am feeling, how is it manifesting in my body? Am I getting pain in my neck, in my head, in my lower back, in my stomach, in my chest? Where is the pain? So having the awareness. Next thing is focus on breathing. This is a very important thing, and you must have heard from many people, meditation experts and yoga experts. Focus on your breathing. So why is it important to focus on your breathing? Because when you focus on your breathing, what happens is that when you inhale slowly, just with me, just slowly inhale and just experience what you feel. So when you inhale, you actually feel the sensation of physical sensation of air in your nostrils and possibly in your throat also. And when you exhale, you also feel slightly warm air coming out of your nose. So this is a very good tool because there is always some change happening. Every few seconds, there is a change. I'm breathing in and then I'm breathing out. So every 4 or 5 seconds, there is a change. There is a newness. So it automatically improves our awareness. The second reason why this is helpful is that your focus actually moves from the outside world, the external world, to your inner world, because now you're focusing on something that is inside your body. So that is the second reason why you can increase your awareness by just focusing on your breathing. Now, I have also developed this, and it took me about 1 year because initially I had to do it consciously. Oh yes, I want to, increase my awareness. So I used to consciously shift my attention. But after 1 year, anytime I am in a, for example, stressful situation, or anytime I just need to increase my awareness, I just know it automatically. My subconscious mind does it automatically, and without my knowledge, my attention all automatically goes to my breathing. So it happens, it takes time, you will have to invest time in this. So that's why you have to consciously first focus your attention on breathing, during meditation and yoga, and slowly you can increase your awareness. Now we all talked about labeling or naming your emotions. So we want to increase our vocabulary of emotions, names for emotions, and we want to start, naming those. It was a very frustrating experience when I went to that store and it took me 2 hours to buy, one mobile phone. So what are those feelings? Name those feelings. Next important thing is get to the root of emotion. Again, a challenging task, but important task. Because if you just remain on the surface, I feel angry, and I don't find out why I'm feeling angry. What is the underlying emotion that is making me angry? Then I'm never going to prevent this from happening again. So when I identify the trigger, the source of my anger, I can address that and I can correct that situation. So for example, I might be angry because somebody said something not nice to me. I felt hurt, and that's why I'm angry. Others might be, I did a presentation, and others might think that this was not a good presentation. They will laugh at me. Then I might be angry at myself. So the underlying emotion is very important to identify. So as we said, addressing the root cause is important. Otherwise, we will just be treating the symptoms. Another important thing in increasing your awareness is nowadays we have our smartphone, we have WhatsApp, email, different social platforms on it. So keeping that mobile phone on silent or turned off for some time is very important. Because let's say I'm just browsing WhatsApp or I'm on Facebook and I'm just scrolling down and there is a joke, then I laugh. If there is something sad, then I become sad. And I go through this multiple times. So who is controlling my emotions? I am not in control of my emotions. Something else is controlling my emotions. So we don't want to spend that excessive amount of time on social media who will actually control our emotions, because our emotions are our emotions. We want to have full control of that. And the next thing I want to tell everybody is to increase your awareness. You can take different self-assessment tests. These self-assessment tests can also increase your awareness significantly. For example, the first one is a DISC personality style test. So here you find out what exactly is your personality type. Become aware of your personality type. DISC, D is dominant, I is an influencer, S is for stable and steady, and C is for compliant. So all of us have a dominant style. This is going to help you to work well with others. Let's say you are working with 10 different people. So having awareness of what is your style, having awareness of what is the style of these 9 people, so I can adapt, I can adjust, I can become flexible in my communication, in my behavior with these different individuals. So this is where awareness of your own personality style will help you. Next is there, I think there is also an emotional intelligence test online for free if you just Google that. And there are, they say, total 146 questions. It will take you about 45 minutes to do it. I have not taken it, but I have just seen this online somewhere. So take some of these tests and it can help you understanding yourself better. So there was a question to repeat the DISC tool. So I'll just repeat that briefly. So DISC tool is a tool to identify your dominant personality type. So D is for dominant, aggressive, direct, who is an action taker, who wants to, win and goal oriented and results oriented. I is an influencer who can build relationships with people, who can influence other people through talking and conversations. S is a, person like, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, they are S category. And C is compliant. They are very detail oriented. Wherever there are a lot of details are involved, lot of data analysis, things like that. Bill Gates is C. So this is the explanation of DISC again. So, and we talked about emotional intelligence test with 146 questions. And the last important thing is that ask feedback to other people. What do you think are my strengths? What do you think are my weaknesses? What do you think are there opportunities for me? What do you think are my threats? Ask to your family members. Ask to your colleagues. Ask to your juniors, your students. Ask your seniors. Ask your manager. Ask your principals. So asking feedback. Be open to receive feedback. It will help you a lot. Correct your driving in your personal life and professional life. Okay, so we're coming at the end of this session. So just 2 final thoughts is that just by increasing our awareness, we can increase our productivity in our daily life. And an emotionally intelligent person is a person who can see the future implications or the future impacts of the present actions that you do today, so that he or she can adapt, change his present actions depending on what goal he or she wants to achieve. So these are the final thoughts, and we are open now to take any questions. Let me also turn on my video. Okay. Any questions, Kavita ma'am? Any comments?
We will just open the session for question answer. We will first take the question answer.
Sure. Sure.
So your video is off or what?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, I turned it on now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Participants, you are free to feel free to ask the question. Hello.
Session. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure. You're welcome. You're welcome.
So
okay,
what question is there in chat box?
Yes. Yeah, I just was looking at that. Let me quickly read that. Yeah, so the question here is how to analyze the emotions as so many types are there. Right. Okay, so that's a good question. So as we saw in the spectrum of the feeling wheel or the emotions wheel, there are different emotions. And when you say how to analyze emotions, I mean, the very first thing is to really understand and properly label that emotion with that word. And as we discussed that, we need to continuously increase our vocabulary of the emotions. And the second is that when you say analyzing, one of the things I can interpret this question is that sometimes what happens is that we go through an experience, we go through an event, and we experience something which is not comfortable. We may feel hurt, we may feel jealousy, we may feel, scared, but we don't understand what we are going through right at that point. You just feel that, I don't feel good about something. So there are ways in our life when this can happen. But here, sometimes even if you are not immediately understanding, why I'm feeling this way, what is the root cause of this, there are two important things that you can do. One is logically say, for the time being, I'm not understanding this, so I'm going to let some time go by and just revisit this in 10 minutes or half an hour. Or the second thing you can do is you can openly share your experience or your feeling with somebody else, your loved one, somebody you're really close with. And by just discussing that with the other person is listening, and that other person is going to give you a different perspective. The other person may ask you some questions that can help open up some of the answers for you. So these are the two things that you can do to analyze. And it's important to always find out the underlying feeling, because we all can get very worked up with somebody's behavior. That that person on the street, he was honking for last 2 minutes, so I got very irritated. But under that behavior, there might be something underlying going on. We don't know that. So it's always important to understand with anybody's behavior. If you want to change somebody's behavior, always first work on understanding the underlying feelings, their needs, their unmet needs, their beliefs, values. So that's what I will say. Let me see.
Any questions?
Yeah, I think Dr. Kamlesh says, can we get the resource material to go through? So yeah, I will share the notes with Kavita ma'am today. I will do that.
I think there is no question.
Okay, yeah. So we answered the second question.
No, there is no question in the chat box. Only one is there.
Yeah.
So you answer for that. Sir, I have one question. Like you explained very nicely regarding stimulus and response.
Correct.
And in between that, there lies the happiness or decision making should be done in between stimulus and response. Now, this time is very less. Means generally what happens as well as stimulus is there, we respond. Right?
Correct.
So that time is very less, and in that fraction of second or fraction little time we have to take the decision. So this how you
correct.
According to your theory or according to your study, how we can take decision, proper decision, right decision at that situation. That is the thing I just want to ask.
Correct. Okay, sure. I'll respond to this. See, whenever we say, we have a stimulus, some kind of external event, sometimes it happens very rapidly. It can happen, in our family. It can also happen, in our profession also. So sometimes that time, as you said, rightly, is very less to, quickly respond. So the first important thing here is to become aware that we want to make a conscious response. And the second thing is also to be aware that we have less time to respond. So when you become aware that I have less time to respond, in that case, you can at least communicate with the other people, saying, for example, you may need little bit more time to think about this, and so at least immediately go to that person and tell him or her that I understand the situation and I'm just going to address this, but I need 5 to 10 minutes. Would it be okay if I respond to you in 10 minutes? And in doing so, what you're doing is you're also addressing the urgency by doing something, by showing that you are working on this, and at the same time you may realize from the other person that this decision has to be made right now. So in that case, not only your awareness but your other skills also play a very important role. Like if you want to make decisions, generally we all make decisions based on data. We want to make good decisions. We want to make it based on data. So whatever your decisions are, finally, you have to figure out, how much time do I have available? What data do I have available? And you can make a conscious effort to logically assess the situation. And then say, based on this, if I were to make a best decision right now, I would go with option 1, for example. So, and in doing all of this decision making, your previous experience is also going to help you, because you may have made certain decisions in the past that are similar. So all of that is already in your memory, is already in your brain, and all of that immediately automatically comes to help you if you just relax and become aware. Because what happens is, if we, in this situation, if we don't remain aware and relaxed, whenever go in a stress mode, our logical thinking ability is reduced. So we cannot think properly whenever go into the stress mode. So always the first thing is awareness, relax yourself, and then with the available information, you make that best decision or recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
So one more question is there in chat box by Deepak Ganmote. How to
Sure.
overcome greed, which will result in self-awareness?
Okay. So let me read that. How to overcome greed, which will result in self-awareness. Okay. So let me rephrase this question to make sure I'm understanding. Deepak is saying how to overcome greed, which will result in self-awareness. So is your goal, Deepak, overcoming the greed and increasing self-awareness? Can you just elaborate on your question? Okay. Yeah, he's saying yes. How to overcome greed, which will result in self-awareness. So, see, very first thing is that if you feel you are greedy, and so that is the first awareness point. You are aware that you are greedy. So the next important question becomes, how is that affecting your life, and how is that affecting lives of other people in your personal life, and what is that exact change do you want to do about that feeling of greed? Do you want to completely eliminate that? Do you want to partially eliminate that? What is the exact goal that you have in your mind? So I think we have to go a little bit deeper in this question. In that, first you have to become aware of what you have, then you want to become aware of what you don't want in terms of, in this case it is greed, and then start slowly taking actions. You don't have to take, big actions in the initial stages. You can start very slowly to start working, in getting rid of that feeling of greed. And you also have to think about what may be the underlying needs you may have. Let's take an example that some person is very greedy about money. So he is very greedy money. So in any transactions that he is doing, whether it's a trade or business deal or whatever transaction he is doing, he always is looking for, if this is 1,000 rupees, if the supplier seller is saying this product is 1,000 rupees, and this greedy person says, no, I want it at 500 rupees. So maybe there is something that has happened, in your previous experiences that you may not be consciously aware where that feeling of fear is exactly coming from. So the underlying feeling in this case can be, if I don't have enough money, then something good is not going to happen. If I don't have enough money, something bad is going to happen. So this person may have an underlying fear, may have an underlying belief that tells him unconsciously that, greed is required. Greed is required for me to get rid of my fear. Because he's associating at a deeper level, at an unconscious level, with not enough money is something bad. So you have to, this is a little challenging to crack, but if you work on it, you can find something underlying. And once you find that underlying reason of where it is coming from, then you will automatically start becoming more aware, and you can get rid of that particular feeling.
One more question is there.
Okay, let me see.
How to differentiate?
Okay. Yeah, how to differentiate between anger, rage, irritability, vexation, mortification, indignation. Okay. So these are all very important emotions or feelings. And as we discussed in the session today, anger is a primary emotion. It's never just by itself. There is always something underlying. There is a root cause. There is a hurt. There may be a feeling of being scared. There may be some other underlying reasons for anger. Irritability is again some person getting irritated. But why does that person get irritated? It may be a physical thing. It may be somebody, a colleague or a friend, saying something to him, or singing a particular song, for example. So if I have associated a particular song with a very bad experience in my past memory, then what happens is, the moment I hear that song, that memory is invoked, and then I feel very, very sad. Whatever emotion was associated in the past experience, I start feeling that, and I become irritated immediately. So you can analyze, your irritability that way. There is always something underlying for somebody to get irritated. There is what's called our triggers. For example, let's say my son, who is 10 years old, who I'm just making up an example. So he says, "Oh, I'm going to study only for 30 minutes." So if I associate my son studying only for 30 minutes to something bad, that he's not going to get, marks for me, and then I get irritated. My natural response. And we take one more, indignity. Indignity is a very powerful feeling, and one of the best examples of this is you all must have watched the movie Gandhi, and in that, when Gandhi, he was traveling in the plane in South Africa, and when he was literally treated very badly and literally thrown out of the train, and that was the moment of transformation for Mahatma Gandhi, because he said, the indignity I felt because of the way I was treated on that train. If I am an individual, one person, if one person is feeling this much of indignity, then at that time, when British people were ruling India, how must an entire nation feel? He just imagined and compared that feeling of indignity to his indignity versus the entire India nation's indignity. And that's when he made a decision to change. So this is a very powerful feeling of indignity. So this is how you can analyze your different feelings of going through that experience, whatever you are feeling, and imagine that you are describing that entire event or incident or experience to somebody. And that's when you will start getting clues about, how exactly is this happening. Okay, so Kavita ma'am, are there any questions?
I think there are no questions.
Okay, yeah, let me see.
Okay. Sir, please stop sharing your screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Let me go here. Okay, yeah, I did that. So
I think there is no question.
all questions are done, I think.
Yeah. All
Okay.
questions are done. So
Okay.
we will just conclude the session. Aruna, are you there? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, but you are not. I think your video is not on. Just start the video.
Yes, ma'am. Hello. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, sir, for excellent session. We are very grateful to have Mayur Pangrekar, sir, as a guest speaker. So the session was very informative and helpful to maintain an emotional balance. You gave a very realistic example and shared important points like self-awareness, great story of Vyasa, awareness about strengths, weaknesses, and how to learn and our values, core things, and various aspects of emotions. I take this opportunity to thank you, sir, on the behalf of our management, principal, sir, and faculty. Thank you, sir. Also, I would like to thank our all participants. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.